This week, I get to talk with Tim Bonnell. Now, every business owner probably has 5 or 10 people that they can count on to have information, have the network, help solve problems, get involved with a new project or a new initiative, run ideas by, those kinds of things. And, whether they're a supplier or a partner or a client or whatever, they kind of put that aside, put on another hat and run with it. And Tim Bonnell is that kind of guy. He really gets the law of reciprocity. He really gets the concept of community in the aviation industry. And so it was a really great pleasure to sit with him and talk about some of the issues impacting the industry and also about his new book. His new book is Airport and Aviation Business Insurance Fundamentals, and it's actually really good business advice, no matter what your business is in the aviation industry. We're putting it on our book list for next year, and we're really looking forward to getting hold of our copy and diving into it. But let's dive in first to our conversation with Tim. We were just both recently in Las Vegas for the NBAA show. And it was kind of cool too. It's always great to see everybody in person. And I think that's one of the biggest values of that show. And then sharing ideas in person, there's nothing better than being in the same room. But Tim, I know you've attended NBAA many, many times. Did you have anything that surprised you about this year's show, or do you still recommend NBAA as a marketing venue, or what's your feeling about the future of trade shows?
That's a really great question this year. I think I always find value in it. We have customers that we meet, most every year, some that we see, once every year or two or a couple of years. And obviously we have a number of our insurance company partners there. It's always good to be a part of the buzz and see the newest news and to connect with other vendor partners like we do with yourself and to get to mix with other networks. We had a breakfast with you and some of your other clients. So I got some great discussions with them, got to meet some new people, had some great conversations. And so I think there's always value in that. The show was noticeably smaller in some capacities. It's always a big show. It's a big show, but when you're used to what it was, a while back, I think the hall was changed and the manufacturers had less of a presence in the exhibit hall, while some of them either didn't come or they reduced down their efforts at the static display. But I guess they feel if they've already got a big backlog of inventory on being sold, then they don't need to do as much. So the fortunate thing is it made it easier to walk and see more things. But it's always good. Many people in the industry there, customers, and I think you talk about just being intentional with setting appointments and having clear goals as to what you want to accomplish when you're there. And we certainly did the same and enjoyed it as usual.
Oh, great. Yeah, I think we did as well. And I think if there's been a change in strategy, maybe has been, fewer of our clients are exhibiting and more of our clients are walking and strategically making appointments and, other things like that, just because the expenses have gone so far up. And it looks like a lot of people have made that decision because there were a lot fewer exhibits this year, or a lot fewer booths. And a lot of companies that have exhibited in the past are simply, they're not foregoing the show altogether. They're just coming to interact and enjoy that part of the show rather than manning a booth and having that presence there. So that's interesting.
Yep. Yeah. It's a very expensive show, and then obviously you got to have people in a booth for 2.5 days, and if you've ever done that, especially in a smaller company, it can get quite exhausting, I assure you. But fortunately, it's nice when people know you're there and come and see you. But if you're strategic, you can get your calendar filled with high quality meetings, and so whatever works for your purpose and your company, obviously. And I think our strategies were similar, given the nature of what we're doing.
Right, right, exactly. Well, that's fantastic. So, I think the coolest news that you shared at the show was your new edition of the second edition of the Aircraft Insurance Fundamentals book. Of course, anytime there's a second edition, I always have to ask, what made the difference between edition one and edition two? Was there like an incident or a conversation or something that made you want to dive in again? Because anybody who's ever published a book knows that this is so much work that you never want to do that again for a while. But then
Yeah,
something makes it necessary,
yeah,
right?
that's true. And actually, this is actually there are some common elements to the very first version. The book back here is Aircraft Insurance Fundamentals. If I can point my finger correctly, we actually just released the second edition of that specific book actually a few months ago, and what we released last week is actually mostly new book. It's completely expanded. It really focuses not on just aircraft insurance and aircraft ownership, insuring aircraft ownership and operations, but it's really designed for airports and aviation businesses. And so it's by far the biggest of the three books that I've written on aircraft insurance or aviation insurance fundamentals. The first one being on aircraft, the second, which is right there, is on aerial application. And so this one really gets more into general business insurance for aviation and airports, such as things like the aviation commercial general liability, additional risk management and safety things, contractual liability, workers' compensation, business auto, property, all these other things, cyber liability, employment practices that go into operating a full-fledged aviation business, not just operating an aircraft. But many aviation businesses operate aircraft, so we included similar but expanded and focused versions of some of our aircraft book in there. And the reason is, you know, we just, you're into marketing and everything we do is really about value creation. And you think about what do you do uniquely in the market, and I think we're really good at having a very strong knowledge of aviation insurance policies and the business, arguably better than most in the industry. I would argue that. Others may disagree, but and we're good at creating content. This is our third book. We've got blogs. We've got articles we write for other publications. We've got the Aviation Insurance podcast, and so I felt that this was a gap in what was out there because most of what is out there about aviation insurance is either available specifically through the Aviation Insurance Association, which has great courses and information for its members and non-members, which I participate in and teach some of their stuff. But making airports operators and aviation businesses aware and just to have a resource to them of all the different aviation business insurance exposures was something that really wasn't out there on a semi-readable basis. I don't think there's any book about insurance that's overly exciting to be a page turner to entertain you on a long flight. But when you're needing to understand what it is you're doing, how to understand the all the insurance policies you're paying for, and all the exposures you have, and what you may exposures you may have but aren't covered. That's really what this book was designed to do. It covers many of the typical exposures an aviation business or airport might have. Obviously, the business is so diverse. The industry's got many different things it does, and so there's never 100% catch-all, but it goes over the majority of the insurance policies and exposures that typical aviation business or airport might have. And so, to me, is a source of pride to do what we do well and to market and to create value. And that's really what it's about, to help inform, um, the aviation industry, that especially on the business side and airport side, about their insurance coverages and a lot of the considerations that go into that. And so it's an undertaking, but I also surround myself with a good team who helps, edit, and you guys are involved in that, and my team specifically. So I create a lot of initial content, but I surround myself with a lot of good people who can copy edit and create press releases and do art and format things. And so the more you do these things, kind of you know what you're doing. You have a better idea of how to do it. And so yeah, it was an opportunity to bring this content to market that wasn't there, and to provide this to consumers. Now, it's not always serving airports and aviation businesses. I get told regularly by industry colleagues when I go to various events or talk to them on the phone, or I'm at the Aviation Insurance Association conference, that this is used to train a lot of my the underwriters and various people at insurance companies and even friendly competitors in the industry. So my books have gone on to be a reference in a number of capacities that really, honestly, Paula, was surprising to me. I think the first,
Wow.
I think the first book right there
Yeah,
is
the aerial application fundamentals, right?
yeah. Well, the aircraft one is on the NBAA Certified Aviation Managers recommended list. I've seen, if you Google it, so it's listed at several universities. It's so being its own unique niche really expands the possibilities of who it impacts and who it's reaching. And you start with an idea to write a book and create some value, and it's really interesting to see where it goes. And it's reaching a lot of different audiences of people interested in the aviation industry from school, up through, very involved in the business.
Right. So it's almost like an evolution where one book made the next necessary. The reaction and I guess interaction based on the book creates the next book because then you realize, wow, there's some stuff in aviation insurance fundamentals about business insurance, but not about all of the specific aviation business insurance needs and nuances and everything else. So it uncovered the need. One set of content created the need for the next.
Yeah. And, obviously you do a lot of teaching on marketing, but, when we create podcasts, when I present, on topics, you're diving deep into these topics. And so, it's not that any of this wasn't without, a lot of these different chapters and topics. I'd already done some research, created some initial content for. And so I'm always about, utilizing our content, repurposing it appropriately. Obviously, this is much more in depth than any other piece of content we've used this information with. It's much more expanded, but it wasn't without any of the work in place already. And that's the advantage of, when you're, do content marketing and focus on creating value to the market, you're able to take the work you've done and to apply it in multiple different ways to reach, different audiences. And so that went into this as well. So, some of this I'd worked on or had a lot of the content for, or at least the bones, the skeleton for at different levels. And so we went in and added context and information, and it still took a lot of time and effort, but because we've had this ongoing strategy of the content marketing and bringing the value to the industry, it made doing this book certainly a lot easier.
Right, right, exactly. So obviously, this has helped the books in general, and having published them, some of them a while back, has positioned you as a thought leader in the industry. But let me ask you this, because this is a marketing podcast, I have to ask, how do they fit into your sales cycle? How do you use them in your sales process, or do you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we have a specific prospect, the book's a tool that we can use to send them and to connect with them on. And, a lot of times, especially in a lot of businesses, if you can't just go up and buy fuel or have them, fix something one time, starting a relationship with an insurance agent or a marketing agency is can be a longer term commitment. And so when you put out content, it offers people, the opportunity to take that, here's a sample. This person, knows what they're talking about. When you have podcasts and things, it gives them opportunity to understand and get to know you, your thought process, your communication. So there's that specifically. Obviously, this, people buy this all over the place, and you'll get calls from people who've read the book. They call and say, "Hey, I read your book, I heard your podcast. Um, would like to visit with you about our aviation insurance or aircraft insurance, whatever it might be." So it positions you as a thought leader, but you can use it directly, and they'll obviously have indirect opportunities. I get called by attorneys, aviation attorneys who've read the book and want me to be an expert witness, and you know after they read the information. And so there's just as with anything, you've got the direct value, and then there's a lot of intrinsic values that multiply on it. And so with the time we've invested in creating content, whether the books, the podcast, there's always been an ROI. Some of you can directly see, and some of it there's just a number of intrinsic values. So we've not regretted any of that time invested. And again, I've people say, "How do you have the time?" And I'm just like, "Well, this is part of what I do." And but B, I really surround myself with a great team who can help me to accomplish it. A lot of times it's not how can I do this myself, it's how can I do what I need to do, and then surround myself with other people with the skills and ability to help me to finish it and get it done.
Right. That's so interesting because, a lot of people who are content creators are practitioners of a profession, of course, and they see the content creation not as a separate thing from their business, but they see that as part of what they do. Their job is to educate their customers. So, if you're creating these materials partly for your customers so that they are, educated about the decisions that they're making, they're getting better service from you. This is part of the value that you create for your customer. So it is part and parcel of your practice, to produce some of this. And I love that philosophy that I think a lot of people share. I guess, uh, oh, geez,
Peterson?
Jordan Peterson. He's a psychiatrist, psychologist. And he extends his practice into his content, and whether you agree with him or not, he's very, very popular and he's a whole lot more successful in his profession because of the content he creates. And, I think in tiny niches like ours, we have some of that same opportunity without I don't know what you would call it, the weight or the fame, that goes with it. You want to be very, very famous, but with a very small group of people. So maybe you're famous when you walk down an aisle at NBAA, but you can still go to the supermarket in peace without being mobbed by, um, you know, fans.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, people have different motivations, and we're a very purpose-driven company. We want to make an impact on the people we serve, and then others conversely. But it never feels bad to leave a positive impact on your industry. When we're at the end of our career, they're not going to go out and repeat, what your sales numbers were. Obviously, you want those to be positive, and you want to make a profit. But it's the impact you made on your industry and on others that really, contributes to your long term legacy and the difference you make. And so, content creation, that's just another part of it. And if this trains, my competition, so be it. If our industry is better, so be it. And I really, again, at the end of the day, I think that usually always, rewards the person anyway. And so, again, this, whether it's the podcast, whether it's the book, providing content, it serves your customers, helps train my own team because they have right from me, these resources. We definitely do give these books to the customers that they apply to anytime we have the opportunity, and obviously by mail. And but you shouldn't overlook, just having a purpose mindset to leave the industry a better place than when you arrived in it. I'm the beneficiary of the training and mentorship of my dad, who was in the business. Also, other men. Some are retired, some are still in the business. More and more of them are becoming retired each year. But they made decisions to spend time with me and to spend a little extra time with me, and I grew as a result. And so, obviously, the content creation just has a lot of benefits, but that may be one that gets overlooked from time to time. It's just it's good to have a positive impact on your industry, and I don't think that ever hurts somebody.
Absolutely. I mean, it becomes kind of priceless, frozen wisdom. I mean, there's the ephemera of the internet, that comes and goes, and things are popular for a while and then not, and everything. But I still love books. I mean, we have our book club because I think, it is concentrated wisdom, that's frozen into a really convenient form. And it took effort to produce this, unlike a lot of the content on the web. A lot of people have blogs, a lot of people have podcasts, which are great in and of themselves, but they're usually very specific. Some of them are very time oriented and things like that. But what goes into a book is usually much more timeless and much more concentrated, I guess. Wisdom,
Absolutely. And when you create this content, obviously the book lives out there in one way, but all the other content, such as the podcasts or the subsequent blogs. I mean, when you go to do, sponsorship type of marketing and other digital marketing, the content you put out there improves your SEO, um, your search engine rankings, as you and I know, and um, you know, on your cost per click stuff, that helps a lot. So it really, there's a lot of benefits, and I don't sit there and really name any of these other than this is what I can do well. This is how I can serve my clients, my prospects in our industry, and so we just feel a calling to put it out there and to do the best job we can. And even back to your original question, things change, new risks emerge. For instance, in this aircraft insurance book, we saw even at NBAA a couple new eVTOL and the electronic vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, the new part of the new advanced air mobility movement. So we've got an introduction into that in the aircraft book, and the UAS, the unmanned aerial system market's growing, and then we're looking at things like in this new book, we've got cyber liability, and cyber insurance, which wasn't a big thing to everybody back in the day, but now it's affecting businesses of all sizes. And so, so that's why, a lot of these books are timeless, but there's an opportunity to update some of them. And that's why, and you get through it and you get through the editing process and you realize something got changed that somehow you missed, or there's always something you want to update because in the editing process, it's hard to catch absolutely everything, and or someone misunderstood something. And as much as many times as you read it, there's always that one or two things you want to fix, and there's the things you want to update. And so, I think there's always an opportunity after a period of time with a niche specific book to provide updated content and to bring added value. And so that's why the edition 2 of the aircraft insurance book was done. And aerial application here, that's a constantly changing. It's a very, very, very specialized field. So that certainly will have an opportunity down the road for some updates, and certainly this book will as well. But in general, it serves as a really, really good foundation. It should be very viable for very any type of foreseeable future you and I have. But business is always changing. Aviation is about innovation and growth, and we're certainly in a day and age today where that's happening. We're looking at new types of vehicles, different types of propulsions in a way that we haven't in many decades. And so it's an exciting time to be in aviation. And yeah, so that's why it's important to look at it and keep up to date, and to keep bringing fresh content to your customers and to your market.
Right. Um, a couple of things that you said kind of brought to mind a conversation that I had with my son in the car. We ended up taking a long car ride over the weekend, and he asked me, because he was kind of seeking mentors in his profession and things, and seeking uh, guidance. And a lot of what he was finding was either outside of his field or maybe in a slightly different field. And he asked, well, who are your mentors? Because you're in aviation marketing, which is aviation and marketing are both kind of these funky little silos. And your name came up because it is not necessarily. I mean, your job is insurance rather than marketing, but we're both in
Okay.
aviation. There's some overlap there, and seeing what you do well. And I think a lot of aviation companies and other companies can take a lot of guidance from what they learn from somebody who is a thought leader in the industry, even if it's not quite their niche, or not niche, whatever you want to call it, depending on
Sure.
what part of the country you're from.
Right.
Yeah, and a lot of the things that you are doing, you are looking for partnerships. You're looking for ways to assist in the industry. You're partnering with the CAM program. You're partnering with NBAA, other associations. And so, those are things that I've seen what you're doing. And, I take that as a mentorship cue. I don't know if I've ever expressed that to you before, but I do see you that way. And I think that part of the reason for that is your intention, your values, and your commitment to make the industry better.
Yeah. Well, that's a good. Mentors is a good subject, and sometimes those are direct, sometimes those are colleague oriented or collaborative, such as what we have. And then, the other thing is, I can't remember who said it originally, but a number of people have had, readers are leaders and leaders are readers. And so, if, in order to lead and grow and impact your industry, to impact your team, to better serve your clients, you have to grow yourself, and so that's where you have the book club. It's looking monthly at what we learn to grow, and obviously a lot of yours is marketing, but there's obviously business things outside of that. And so, to be a thought leader, you have to invest in yourself. You can't lead others where you can't take, where you can't take yourself. And so that's where, looking at reading not only like leadership or business type books, but industry books.
Fantastic. So I guess we can kind of just wrap up with the book is available now on Amazon. So you can pre-order or actually order the book and get it soon and have it on your bookshelf ready to answer those questions, especially